Renekton has always been one of the staple picks for top lane. However, ever since the Shieldbreaker buff was added onto Renekton's kit, his pick rate has been skyrocketing. A lot of new players are picking up Renekton, and as a result, his win rate is tanking a little bit. You see, the common opinion is that Renekton is a very simple, easy to play top laner. However, this is just not the truth. He has a fairly high skill floor, and one of the highest skill caps in the entire game. Now, we already have a few Renekton guides on the channel, namely a Fury Management one and a Laning Phase one. However, today we're finally going to be doing a video that I've wanted to do for years. Welcome to my ultimate Renekton guide. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Panther, and I am the highest rated Renekton player on NA for the past 4 years. I had the wonderful opportunity of playing with and against the world's players in Season 6 while they were in NA. Now this does include players like Faker and Kuve, and Kuve himself said that I was the best Renekton player he has ever played against in any region in any season. You heard right, Kuve, the man who grew up playing against the Renekton legend himself, Marin. Now if after watching this guide you're itching for more Renekton content, then you can check out our website using the link in the description. There we have a course on all of the Renekton essentials. Now the first thing that we want to cover is some of the misconceptions about Renekton. These misconceptions are things that a lot of people fall prey to, and you do not want to let yourself be falling prey to this if possible. Now the first and most important thing that you need to know about Renekton is that even though his early lane phase is good, his level 1 and 2 are atrocious. You need to have your E and your W in order to perform a meaningful trade, meaning you need to wait for level 3 in most cases since you will be starting Q in most lanes. You can perform a level 2 cheese by starting either E or W instead of Q, however know that this trade will not deal nearly as much damage as your level 3 trade, and it's a lot less safe because you don't have your sustain yet. This means that if you fail a level 2 cheese, you're not going to be able to get yourself back into the lane as quickly since you won't have Q to sustain yourself back up afterwards. Now while we are on the topic of skill order, make sure you are skilling your abilities in the right order. You want to be maxing your Q first, then your E, and then your W last. You need to max your E second in order to lower that cooldown. Remember, since Renekton is entirely melee, mobility is everything to him. Maxing E second allows you to get around the map and get onto people frequently. Now the last misconception that we're going to be going over really quickly here is about Renekton's W. Now this goes for both people who are playing Renekton or just playing with Renekton. You need to understand that in the early game, an unempowered W is not going to be a long CC duration. Now this is more geared towards junglers than Renekton players themselves because most Renekton players know that an unempowered W isn't going to lock anyone down for very long. If you are playing with a Renekton and they don't have an empowered W, then you're not going to have that much CC. The CC duration is going to be half as long and it's going to deal half as much damage. Make sure you're waiting for 50 Fury before making a gank happen. This is oftentimes just 1 or 2 extra autos on a minion. So by all means, make sure to play patient and don't force something to happen when it's not going to work. Make sure that you're waiting that extra 1 or 2 seconds for 50 Fury so that your gank will be successful. Now remember, Renekton is strongest in the early laning phase and in the mid game. As a result, you want to be making the most of the lane phase so that you're able to extend your lead through the mid game and end before it gets to late game. This is where taking the proper runes and summoners comes into play. Now in the top lane, you have 3 different choices for summoner spells that you might be taking alongside Flash. The first is TP. This is a spell that I would recommend for those of you that are newest to Renekton. This spell will cover for any mistakes that you make in the early lane phase, allowing you to TP back to the lane for free if you do get chunked out. I would also recommend using this spell into heavy poke lanes like Jace or Teemo. This will allow you to get to your level 6 much safer, and once you have level 6, you start to be able to turn that lane. As a general rule of thumb, I only take TP if it's going to be a lane that I'm going to be struggling to survive in. You see, I'm a player that prefers not to play for bot lane, and I prefer to be the main carry on the team. I can play for bot lane if I'm forced to, however, I prefer to put everything on myself. I believe that for solo queue, this is the best approach to have in order to climb the fastest. Remember, you are going to be be wanting to be the main carry on the team because you're going to be in every single one of your own games. This is why I prefer to take Ghost and Ignite whenever I can. Now, Ignite is the other spell that you most commonly see Renekton running. This paired with his early game aggression allows you to get kills in the early game and close a game out quickly. Ignite allows you to beat matchups that would normally be skill matchups without Ignite. This is stuff like Riven and Irelia. Without Ignite, these matchups are pretty hard and they will be very, very close. By taking Ignite, it swings the matchup enough in your favor that you'll be able to maintain lane control for the majority of the laning phase, allowing you to get as much fury as you need. Just by taking Ignite, you swing these harder matchups completely into your favor. Ignite also scales really well into the late game for 1v1s. The healing reduction on Ignite, paired with the shield breaker mechanic on Renekton's W, makes it so that pretty much no bruiser in the game, except for maybe Jax or Kled, will be able to 1v1 you. This is very, very good if you only intend to split push and never really intend to group with your team. Again, this is a harder playstyle to make work because it puts all of the pressure on you and brings it off of their team. But if you are able to pull it off, it is a much higher chance of winning. Taking Ignite is the best way to learn Renekton quickly, in my opinion. This is because all of the pressure is going to be put directly on you, and if you are able to handle these high pressure situations, you're going to be able to master the champion very quickly. Now, moving on to Ghost, and this is something that I only recommend taking if you have truly mastered all of Renekton's kit. You see, Renekton thrives off of mobility, and the highest mobility spell in the game is Ghost. Flash is really good and everyone takes it, but it's only a set blink distance. While Flash is very good, it can only allow you to do so much. By pairing Ghost with Flash, you're able to do a lot more. By having all of that additional movement speed given by Ghost on top of your Flash, you're going to be able to dominate mid-game teamfights. This, together with Spear of Shojin and Conqueror, should allow you to pretty much 1v5 any mid-game teamfight if you're able to play your early laning phase well and get a massive lead. This is why Ghost feels so good once you have mastered the champion. You pop your ultimate, Ghost, you flash onto the carry, one-shot them, get a huge Spear of Shojin fight, and just delete the entire enemy team. With the extra health from your ultimate, paired with an item like Steric's Gauge or GA, you're going to be unkillable while wiping entire enemy backlines almost instantaneously. You can't be kited because you have so much move speed from Ghost, and if they do flash away from you, you can just follow it with your own flash. This summoner spell pairing turns Renekton into a truly unkillable ball of death in the mid game. However, just be warned, if you're not able to make the most of Renekton's laning phase with Ghost, then you're not going to be seeing nearly as much success. And this is why I only recommend it for those who have already mastered the laning phase. Now, if you're looking to make the most out of your laning phase and truly master it, I would highly recommend checking out our Renekton guide on the laning phase. This video goes completely in depth on everything you need to know about the laning phase and how to truly make the most of it even into hard matchups. If that's something that does interest you, we'll have a link for you in the description once you're done with this video. Now you might be thinking, well Panther, how do I know that I've mastered the laning phase and I'm ready to be taking Ghost in my games? And that's a very good question. Most of it has to deal with your fury management and your wave management. Now these topics go hand in hand, and they are the bread and butter of your laning phase. This is what makes Renekton's laning phase so much different from every other champion in the game. Minions are a resource for Renekton. Now the better that you're able to control this resource, these minions, the better you're going to be able to control your fury in the laning phase, which will then make your laning so much more potent. Now every Renekton player is different. However, the two best ways to play Renekton, in my opinion, are proxying and freezing. Freezing is so fantastic on Renekton for multiple reasons. When you have your lane frozen, the enemy wave is always going to have more minions than your wave. For example, your wave might have 6 minions alive and their wave might have 10 minions alive. Hitting a wave of 10 minions is going to net you more fury than hitting a wave of 6 minions. It will also heal you a lot more, as your Q heals more for each target that it hits. This is why Renekton is so good in a frozen wave. He doesn't require as much fury to start an all-in if the wave that he's fighting in is large. You also don't really need to worry about minion damage racking up on you if you are trading in a big wave, as Tiamat, Q, and a few ticks of your ultimate will kill the entire wave. Now, once you do have Tiamat, however, you won't be able to freeze nearly as much, and this is why I recommend Proxying instead. Proxying behind the enemy tower is very similar to freezing. It allows you to generate a lot of fury, and you are able to freely manipulate the minions however you want. Once you do feel comfortable proxying and know when you should proxy and when you should not, is when you have truly mastered the laning phase on Renekton. A general rule of thumb is you want to use Fury on Q in order to heal more, you want to use Fury on W in order to stun and lock somebody down for as long as possible, and you want to use Fury on E in order to shred armor. And that's it. Those are the main reasons. If you are looking for a guide on how to manage your Fury perfectly, then be sure to check out our Fury management guide on this channel. If there is one mechanic that you should master on Renekton, it's his Fury, and that guide covers absolutely everything about Fury management. Now, on Renekton, you don't want to stay in the laning phase forever. You will eventually want to extend your lead through other lanes and get to the mid game quickly. Once you have an item or two completed, say your Spear of Shojin and Black Cleaver, you're going to want to look to either 1v2 in the side lane or hard carry a team fight. If you're able to successfully do this, then you will be able to leverage an objective like Dragon or Baron. This is by far the best way to extend your lead through the mid game and close out a game quickly. Carrying a teamfight around 25 minutes into Baron is one of the best ways by far to close out a game before it gets into that 30-minute late game area. The best way to guarantee this to happen is to take the tower early and roam to either mid lane or bot lane. This should allow you to secure the outside turrets along with Dragon. This is how you accelerate the game into mid-game before the enemy team is able to react. You don't just want to autopilot and stay top lane for the whole game, because this will lower your impact. You have to be playing around those power spikes, 40% CDR and a Spear of Shojin. Now, you might not be able to end every game before late game happens, but don't worry, I've still got you covered for that. If late game does come around, you should look to split push as much as possible. By the time late game does come around, Renekton is still the king of duelists. He only really loses to champions like Kled and Jax. As a result, you should look to split push, take towers and inhibs whenever you can. If you aren't taking TP, then this can be risky as the enemy team can force a 5v4 and then Baron. As a result, you should only be going bot lane if your team already has Baron vision set up and pressure. If not, you need to go to the Baron and help them pressure the Baron yourself. This is what makes the late game so hard for Renekton. Since he doesn't usually take TP, because he needs to make the most of his laning phase, he's not able to pressure the side lane and still arrive to Baron on time. The later the game goes, the more risky it is to split push without TP, and oftentimes you're just going to have to commit to getting an inhib. Remember, hard committing to towers is usually better than just running to the Baron, because you're not going to arrive in time. Try to force the enemy team to come to you. This will then allow your team to set up a pick at Baron or even do the Baron. If you're able to draw 3 people to you, then you can either take the 1v3 if you think you can win it, or just back off while your team does other things. Late game teamfighting is something that you should only attempt if you have all of your summoners up and you have your ultimate ready. Once late game comes around, you're just going to get melted and kited if you don't have these things. You still will be able to get a huge teamfight off in the late game. It won't be as potent as your mid-game team fighting, but you'll still be able to hard carry a team fight if you have everything available to you. Winning one teamfight in the late game will often allow you to just push and end the game in its entirety. If not, you can still do Baron and use that to leverage a win. Without Baron on the map, splitting without TP becomes a lot more potent because there's no response to it. You can use this time to get towers, inhibs, and create pressure for the next time that Baron spawns. Now that just about does it for today's guide on Renekton. If you want even more Renekton content, check out the other guides that we have on Renekton on this channel. They go a lot more in depth on very specific mechanics applying to his kit. We also have a Renekton course on our website, and you can check that out using the link below. If all of that isn't enough Renekton content and you are a Renekton fanatic like me, then I would highly recommend checking out the Renekton podcast over on RTO's channel. We got together 4 of the highest rated Renekton players and just talked about Renekton for 2 hours, so if that's something that interests you, be sure to check it out. As usual, I hope you learned something valuable from this video, and I will see you in the next one.